to Gonzaga U and to Spokane. It is such an honor and pleasure to be here today, and I am filled with gratitude for everyone who has joined us at this year's in-person Columbia River Transboundary Water Governance and Ethics Symposium.
I would like to invite you to join with me in acknowledging the homelands of the Spokane tribal people, where we are gathered here at Gonzaga University.
This is the ancestral land of the Spokane tribe of Indians, and we have been here since time immemorial. And we once inhabited over 3 million acres of land in this area.
I just want to say how honored I am to be here, and what my life journey has been an incredible privilege, and I'm very humbled by what I've been able to see and do and accomplish and participate in over the years.
On behalf of Gonzaga University and the Climate Institute, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our campus. Informed by an abiding commitment to a just society and care for the planet.
The river is sacred. People will put aside their differences to heal the river and bring back salmon. Those words were shared with me by Virgil Seymour when we were driving north to meet with Anglican Archbishop John Privet and Roman Catholic Bishop John Corvo. And I asked, would you like tribal staff, would you like help with Columbia River Treaty? And the answer was yes. So with that, I've always felt that we were invited in by the tribal sovereigns to help.
The only thing that we see are the connections with surface water, groundwater, quality, quantity. There's no nations, there's no separations. It's only us in the basin who are all connected. And so we as universities, most of us land-grant public universities in each of the basin states and provinces, said, you know what, this is part of our mission.
I'm the USA co-president for the North American Youth Parliament for Water. We're a youth-led nonprofit that works across the North American region. So as a regional chapter of the World Youth Parliament for Water, our kind of key mission is really to foster these types of youth-led initiatives that advance sustainable water governance.
It's been a real learning experience for me to be on the steering committee to organize this kind of event. And you don't know, you show up, throw a party, is anybody going to show up or not? And there have been so many ups and downs over the last year of so many kinds that we have had to think through as a steering committee, and with the help of our advisory committee as well. And so here we are. It's so good to see you all here. We so appreciate your coming. So we'll have presentations from the Canadian and U.S. negotiating team members. There'll be a coffee break after that session, and then we'll move on at 11 o'clock to panel 2, Perspectives on Columbia River Treaty Modernization.
Once or twice in a beautiful land not so far away, there were rivers, streams, and wetlands where creatures lived and played. But the king was building a hydro dam, and his nephew, Prince Forrest, agreed to come to the palace and work on a plan with the king and the Princess Elise.
There's just so much to cram into a few minutes on this process, which since I've joined has been 7 years. We know how important the Columbia River and the treaty is to everyone in this room and in the region. We were extremely pleased that President Biden and Prime Minister Trudeau could make the announcement in July that we had reached such a major milestone in negotiations. And throughout the negotiations, we listened to diverse groups and frequently turned to the 2013 regional recommendation as a useful guide.
As Jill said, I'm Pete Dickerson with the Corps of Engineers. I work in the Northwestern Division office. It's our regional office based out of Portland, Oregon. And we cover both the Columbia River Basin as well as the Missouri River Basin. But my focus is Columbia River. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So the entities can enter into an arrangement to execute the 3.6 million acre feet of pre-planned FRM that's part of the agreement in principle during this interim period. So we've been having discussions with BPA, the Corps, and BC Hydro, the Canadian entity, working on trying to get that implementation done in this interim
In
period.
principle, both countries have committed to a process to reach a common understanding on when called upon would be triggered and how it would be implemented. First of all, getting the entitlement, we receive it as electricity at the border, and we sell it, BC sells it, it goes to BC at market prices to either BC Hydro or utilities in the United States, and the revenue goes to the general revenue for the province and is used to provide services across British Columbia, but also is shared with the Canadian First Nations in the Columbia Basin.
I represent the Salmon Nation in the negotiations, and the three nations, the Okanagan, Okanagan, and Salmon. We've been involved in the negotiations since 2019. We have a seat at the table on the Canadian side as part of the Canadian delegation. The other part of the voice was to bring our perspectives to the table, and we've done that, and very pleased to represent First Nations ideas. All that we're doing and attempting to do in terms of changing the treaty to more support cultural values and ecological values is very familiar territory for First Nations in terms of our worldview, our perspective. In our language, we have words for everything. And one of the big words that we have in this web is want. It's the obligation we have as First Nations people to be respectful to each other as people, and to respect the natural world.
I want to acknowledge the words of Bill Green, who Maureen and I have, after he's retired, we worked together because he's spent 30 years working with us doing the work. But he talked about how the Columbia Lake, that's the headwaters of the Columbia River, 1/3 of the water is fed by the Kootenai River. And so that's an underground aquifer that exists there. And so it totally matches with our creation story and with the science on the ground.
I won't keep my remarks very long, or I'll try not to. Those of you that know me, that's always a challenge. But I'm really, as I said this morning, I'm really proud and honored to be part of this group and such a collaborative and hardworking group. And yes, we had some very, very difficult issues from time to time, regularly, but we always found a way to keep the dialogue going and find creative solutions.
The next one goes to both the Kootenai Transboundary Collaborative Working Group and the JEP. Might those two organizations become permanent transboundary committees, and who will provide the funding?
Yes, they will become permanent. They're going to be part of the treaty regime. Both the Kootenai Transboundary Collaborative Work Group and the Joint Ecosystem and Indigenous Tribal Cultural Values Body. As far as funding and how that's going to work, it's to be determined. There's a lot of details in both to be ironed out. We are at the AIP stage, and so we'll figure that out. But yeah, in our opinion, it's going to be there forever.
And who's going to fund it?
Still working it out, right.
Is there a way to broaden the participatory process?
I don't think that needs to necessarily go into a Senate advice and consent document. There are work we can do as agencies and working with people to determine how do we get to that in the future, but with the deadline happening in September of flood control and us hitting against some of these challenges with power operations and needing to really pull these critical elements of ecosystem together, we just got to a point where we couldn't put everything in there, and we saw kind of the outreach and engagement as something that, at least for the US side, that we could continue working on as we're putting these important building blocks into place.
When are we going to start talking about the flows for fish passage? some of the work that the tribes have already done in terms of fish solutions in the Spokane Arm, the Stamp Well, some of those areas, those fish are showing us the way. And so the question again comes back to this third leg, and how do we incorporate that or integrate that into a treaty that focuses on flood risk management and power production. When we talk about the salmon and those benefits, again, that gets pushed off into this domestic pile that
we want to collaborate. We want to do the modeling with you. We want to do all the work with you. We want to develop all the identify all the issues and the alternatives and solutions to those issues going forward. And the background for her saying that was the U.S.-Canada Pacific Salmon Treaty, where the tribes, the 4 treaty tribes I work for.
Within the same little area we keep working on, when we've got literally thousands of acres of opportunity to bring salmon back into the system.
In addition to 15 supporters, and collectively we represent thousands of individuals throughout the region, the Upper Columbia Basin. We are very pleased with a number of aspects of the agreement in principle, and I'd like to go through 3 in particular at the beginning of these comments. So second, then the new guidance and recommendations for ecosystem health and adaptive management emerging in the JEB. They're advisory capacity only. I think people have spoken a bit about this, and so far they're restricted to First Nations and tribes, but we are perhaps seeing the emergence of a defined process for inclusion of Western science or non-Indigenous knowledge.
I also want to sort of send out a special message of gratitude to the young people who are here and the Symposium for making a point of creating opportunities to host this, and just appreciate your time.
At 250% normal, 400% in June, and then it had been a cool, wet spring. July 7th, it turned to 30 degrees and melted snow very rapidly, which created an incredible amount of runoff in June. But then we'd already filled our reservoirs and we had no place to put that water. And we ended up surcharging Libby Dam for almost a month.
I turn for inspiration to the great Indigenous botanist Robin Wall Kimmerer, who reminds us in Braiding Sweetgrass that many Indigenous worldviews are grounded not in human supremacy and anthropocentrism, but rather in a kinship model. According to this kin model, humans are not in charge. Rather, we're members of a community, a family of life that includes not only plants and animals, but also waters, forests, and mountains as kin relations. The Columbia River has existed for millions of years, shaped by immense geological forces across repeated glacial and interglacial periods. It's not the Columbia River that needs to be managed. Rather, as political scientist David Orr reminds us, quote, "What might be managed is us."
I'd also say I find that Jeanette's really been demonstrating for me, and I think for many other people, through her example, how reconciliation, decolonization might actually be achieved. Certainly their connections to the Columbia, I think that I came to feel that for myself. So I look forward tonight to learning more from Jeanette about the responsibilities and opportunities that come with that sense of belonging to this Columbia that we all love so much.
So this keynote tonight will focus on areas of thoughts intended to encourage and strengthen the evolving collective and collaborative One River approach in the spirit of this symposium. To contribute to a dialogue on the emerging initiatives in terms of governance and how that might change things. But mainly I have focused and centered my thoughts on the ideas in the draft agreement and principles in relation to the Columbia River to Indigenous people, rather than the broader scope of Canada and the U.S. In terms of their vital participation, their leadership, their guidance in the renegotiation and the ongoing work from this point forward. In particular, my thoughts are intended to contribute thoughts about the approach to the restoration of salmon and the restoration of the ecological health along the Columbia River and the restoration of our Indigenous peoples' cultural health and rights that we have to that. When I think of what a one river approach might mean from a state perspective, state just means indigenous to a place, a specific place, in my language. Those are all important narratives about how our people moved around and how our people got along. The river system was always part of that, those stories, is always part of that. In my understanding, it runs through every one of the stories, it runs through every one of the narratives, and it runs like the river itself through our memories from generation to generation. And I think that's true of every people all along the river system. Our intertribal ceremonies and celebrations, some still being carried out, provided stability of purpose, and a distributed authority of governance to each part in a different way than a centralized form of top-down governance, which doesn't work anywhere. And I can only say how that vision spoke to me about a kind of governance that has no borders, like the river itself. So the achievements that are a result of collaborative, Indigenous-led collective. I will always remember our elected leaders from both sides of the border that worked together to make that possible, and how filled with pride they were, and how strong they were.
Good morning and welcome back to day 2 of the Columbia River Transboundary Water Governance and Ethics Symposium 2024.
Good morning again. I would like to invite you to again join me in acknowledging the homelands of the Spokane tribal people, where we are gathered here at Gonzaga University. We are grateful to be on this land for the people that stewarded it, and ask that the ancestors of this land be with us in our discussions today on how we will care for the salmon and govern ourselves with respect to a modernized treaty.
Yesterday I was asked to share my perspective on how I'm connected to the Columbia River, to this particular event.
We thank you, Father, for the gift of water. We continue on to thank God for water, for what it means to us today as we are washed, healed, restored to life. Water, we say, is sacred from the beginning, and water is sacred today.
We'll start with panel 4, the water quality and transboundary pollution and its effects on salmon and indigenous people.
Today, I am here to talk to you about the work that I've done. I'm currently serving on council, but before that time, I worked on transboundary pollution, and that's actually kind of the love of my life. Those of you in the room know, you just have that good feeling about some of the work you do, and transboundary pollution is something that I can be proud of. That's a 90th percentile and 436 for the 95th percentile. The Spokanes used a higher rate in that they truly believe that they should be able to eat at historical rate.
So as many of you may or may not know, when they finally did say, okay, here's kind of this operable unit that includes the entire Superfund site, and the heart of that is Coeur d'Alene Lake. And for the Coeur d'Alene tribe, Coeur d'Alene people, when you look at our Aboriginal territory, that lake is central to everything that we've done. It was central to the waterways that allowed us to travel throughout our Aboriginal territory.
And this waste rock, when they dump it, it tends to weather. And when it weathers, it releases lean into the water column. And the water rushes into the Elk River, which flows into the Kootenai, and then into the Columbia. One of the main issues that I work with is some of the lack of reclamation, which helps to reduce the amount of water that enters the waste rock piles, which would reduce the amount of selenium. But there's a bit of, they're a bit slow to reclaim, which is somewhat problematic in terms of reducing selenium load.
So Article 7 of the treaty created the IJC, and its tagline is to prevent and resolve disputes over shared waters. The commission itself is 6 individuals, and they are appointed by either the Prime Minister or the President, but it is to be determined at the end of this 2-year period what the IJC's role may or may not be in the future, and that is at the discretion and the pleasure of the governments. And the green on the bottom there highlights sort of these opportunities for public involvement, engagement, input on the different stages of the study board.
And we will go into a technical presentation by Ryan Benson on the Okanagan Nation Alliance Fisheries Department salmon reintroduction efforts and the successes and lessons learned over 20 years of his skills and expertise in that work. That, again, I am so proud of our nation for the successes. So I'm so glad to be able to help moderate this conversation with my colleague Dear Michelle, who has been here since the first day I stepped into these rooms.
So this is sort of a map of the traditional sealed Okanagan territory, and I see it's transboundary. It's sort of the lighter shaded area, the traditional boundaries, and then the red kind of boxed out territories there are the current reserves and reservations in BC and Washington State.
And as we go over, I think it's important that we remember it's going to take all of us. We can have differences about who we are, where we are, but it's going to take all of us to bring salmon home. And we've got to stick together.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here this afternoon for Panel 6, Introduction to Shared River Basin Governance. Over the next hour and a half, you'll hear from 4 wonderful minds who currently study and work on transboundary river governance. As we look to bolster and improve public engagement within the Columbia River Basin, it became important to start to look to other examples of governance and engagement around the world.
We're essentially we're an instrument of the 2 governments to prevent and resolve disputes when necessary, when appropriate, and from time to time, we then have an ongoing or indeterminate place in a particular watershed. So we have maybe 12 or 15 boards across the transboundary region. Some of them are fairly small.
I am very happy and I am very honored to stand here and to be in this very kind community of yours. I was sent here by the Hungarian-American Fulbright Committee to study good practices in the modernization of the Columbia River Treaty.
This is an honest question. Does anyone here think the current governance structure will be around in another 1,000 years? What can we learn from a governance structure that centered salmon and managed resources and its citizen for thousands of years? Transformative governance was needed to fully address the lack of transparency, flexibility, climate change, and other emerging issues. That we needed to get away from a governance structure steeped in anthro-supremacy and white supremacy. I don't think anybody thinks the federal governments know what's best and should have absolute authority to make decisions that impact us all. And I think the Kimberley proposal, and if you haven't read it, or if you read it 5 years ago, dive back into it and check it out. But I think it was an important process to inform the CRT negotiations that other options exist.
The proof of the need for this is that we're the only ones doing it, right? This isn't happening under the treaty. This isn't happening under science boards. This isn't happening in the science meetings. It only happens when we decide to get together across the border and pursue the relationships that we know we have only because we're all citizens of the Columbia Basin.
Public participation aspects or community engagement as that fourth leg.
The goal is to avoid any sort of voting at the end of the day, and sometimes that will take time to get there, and that laborious process should not only pay dividends, in coming to consensus on something, but also should be a means of relationship and trust building in getting there.
In some ways, even you guys can't come to consensus on what you guys think is the right solution to what we're dealing with now.
I think our role is to continue to do this, to provide a place for dialogue, and then to call on the people that have the expertise. What is your vision? What have you seen the last couple of days? What have you learned? And where do you want to go? What is your idea for how we move forward in a one river dialogue?
And when we talk about the international treaty, we're also talking about how two nation states have defined their relationship to the river.
And it is not the Indigenous folks' job to try to teach me as a white person that the suppression of Indigenous folks was bad.
There's a lot of forms of public participation. Early on, we had listening sessions that the entities did, and people would ask questions.
I think it's self-evident to everyone in this room that the respect for Indigenous knowledge and decision-making is just a crucial foundational component of an improved governance arrangement, and we're clearly experiencing that, thankfully.
Myself, I'm Justo Medeo Boccheni. I'm a doctoral candidate at McGill in my 4th year now. And I've come here also thanks to the North American Youth Parliament for Water, in which I'm acting as a membership coordinator since the beginning of this academic year. I'm very grateful to Aaron for presenting me as a member of a panel of experts.
I'm hopeful that moving forward, those points of access are robust and grow over time.
We undertook this series of conferences that really intended to provide, to hand the talking stick to tribal leaders, faith leaders, and academics to try to have a dialogue about the past and future.
I'm sorry, I get a little emotional and worked up and just frustrated again with the games being played and all the money being spent on not doing what's right. If we would just spend half the money we are on fighting some of this stuff by folks, we could get the salmon home.
As I watch this community here, as I'm having discussions with you, as I'm listening to the panels, I am quite sure that, and I use the words of Troy Hunter from the movie In the Morning, so I believe that if this community want to dream of an IRBO, and it is willing to cooperate and develop coordination together, then I'm sure that you can also achieve it on the long run. And well, thanks for inviting me to be part of it.
In listening to everyone speak, I think there is broad consensus. I think everybody's on the same page that we want more people talking and building relationships and showing up consistently.
As Aaron was saying, we started this process as the Universities Consortium in 2007, and what we came together for was to provide a forum for public education and a two-way dialogue. And our whole goal was to empower you to speak, not to speak for you. First observation I want to make is we have come a long way. And as we saw so emotionally today, and it makes me emotional even to talk about it, salmon are swimming above Grand Coulee. And I just want to say, you did that. You did that, all of you, and people like you, whether at the table or speaking from the outside. Yeah, give yourself a hand. You did that. Second observation, we have a long way to go. I would like to conclude by saying thank you to the people who have made this happen, particularly John Wagner, Joanne Taylor, Rianne, all the people that have put this together, John Osborne, my fellow UCCRG, and all of you, because if you didn't come and share your ideas, and those of you, Kathy may have left, but Steve's still here, and Troy and Jay, people who have been at the table, thank you for being here.
To end on a note of optimism, as the AIP transitions into the new treaty and also beyond that point, there remains clearly an opportunity to address these concerns, provided that they're really given due consideration, and of course outside of the institution of the treaty as well as was discussed this afternoon.
My name is Caitlin, and I'm currently doing my master's at UBC Okanagan, and my program is Community Engagement and Social Change and Equity.
My name is Ashley Makoro-Powell. I'm going to speak more from my positionality coming to this event personally, because I'm still processing a lot of the material that has been shared today, but I wanted to express my gratitude to my colleagues and mentors from the University of Washington, Seattle that supported me.
Thank you to all of our young advocates that were rapporteurs, that went through the training, and we'll see you next year.
Sister, son, I'm so thrilled that you have come to help us proceed with this great plan. Soon everyone will see our electricity, power and light from our new dam. They're so meticulous, it's damn ridiculous. They're telling me it shouldn't go ahead. And that's why I brought you in, to make it right again. We have to make it work before it's dead. We're so benevolent, relevant, excellent in our element. To the residents, you'll be a minister, nothing sinister. The Department of Redundancy is yours. Environmentalists, tree huggers, socialists will silence them before they win the war. We're so excellent in our element, and elegant, never arrogant, heaven sent to the residents.
Thank you, Uncle Cathal. I am happy to be here. I've been waiting for this chance since I became an engineer. Getting power out of there is going to be tough. Environmental studies, have there been enough?
Too many is what I think, and they're standing in the way of progress, my dear boy. You'll have to make them go away, or at least confuse them, stir the water, make it muddy, as minister refuting all environmental studies. How's my sister Anna and the treasure we deserve? Did she give you anything shiny with a curve?
Oh, right. She sent you this.
Wow, it's beautiful.
This is the finest prize of all.
Ow, it's hot.
Finally, we have the golden ball. We can build where we please, do everything with ease. In our pocket, now we have them all. The government, parliament, environment, sentiment, the treasury, feasibility, oh, heaven sent.